Remember Aspen Ladd, one of the most exciting fighters in MMA? After leaving the UFC, she signed a contract with the Professional Fighters League. So what has she said was the last straw leading to her departure? And which weight division is she fighting at? Plus, could Sara McMann be leaving the UFC too? Stay tuned for all of that, plus more MMA news coming up. First, Ladd reveals brutal weight cutting in the UFC. Weight cutting in MMA is the toughest thing you can do to your body. Fighters have to slim down rapidly for weigh-in day before bulking back up in preparation for the fight. But Aspen Ladd's last weight cut was a step too far for her. Speaking on the MMA Hour, she said she had to roast for 6 hours before her body refused to lose more weight. She aimed for 135 pounds, but her weight drop stalled at 138 pounds. She said, "The level of the pain, you diet for 10 months out of the year, it's just my whole life is focused on staying small enough." The former UFC bantamweight revealed that one of the biggest problems was that her body just stopped sweating. Stepping into a sauna and getting rid of body fluids is normally a surefire way to lose weight for fighters. But if you stop sweating, there's no hope. The brutal behind-the-scenes practice of weight cutting was exposed with footage documenting UFC champion Cris Cyborg's process. The shocking images showed the world how she struggled to breathe and walk in her pursuit of hitting her weight limit. And even as one of the toughest competitors in the sport, it was bringing her to tears. That's why Aspen Ladd has finally had enough of putting in that much work just to fit into the right division. Next, Aspen Ladd leaves the UFC. For most fighters, UFC is the dream. But after her experience with weight cutting at the promotion, Aspen Ladd isn't keen on sticking around, and it didn't take long for a new opportunity to pop up. She was offered a contract with Professional Fighters League, or PFL for short. The PFL has a very different premise from the UFC. Instead of building up blockbuster fights like in boxing, the PFL has a season where fighters in the same division face each other throughout the year before the top four go into a knockout format. In that way, it has been praised by many commentators as more accurately finding the strongest fighter. Instead of connections or politics getting in the way, success is only guaranteed by the performance inside the cage. In the UFC, Dana White has made no secret that Conor McGregor will still be getting a red carpet welcome. Not only does he earn more money than other fighters for the audience he draws, but he can also fight top fighters, despite winning only one fight in the last 4 years. If McGregor were in the PFL, he wouldn't be anywhere near the top 4. That's one of the reasons Aspen Ladd is so excited about joining the promotion. She said that since leaving the UFC, nothing but positivity has happened. And she even revealed that she's making more at the PFL than at the UFC. Maybe it's finally time to up the wages, Dana, before you lose even more fighters. Dana White says something had to be done. Aspen Ladd had a pretty average run at the UFC. She lost her last 2 fights and has a 4-3 record with the promotion. So what did Dana White have to say about her release? Her next fight will be against Julia Budd this November as she looks to make her mark on the PFL. The company reached out to her as soon as she missed weight for her fight against Sara McMann at the UFC, and the PFL is even creating its division, and Ladd is the first competitor. The PFL's game was the UFC's loss, but Dana White wasn't so sympathetic toward her. While he said she's a great kid with a lot of talent, he emphasized that part of the job is making weight, and it wasn't exactly the first time. Aspen has a history of missing weight, so this one was when Dana decided that something had to be done. While Aspen Ladd claims that it was her who cut ties, the way Dana White is talking sounds like they made the decision. Either way, the two parties parted ways and seemed to be better for it. But it wasn't all sour grapes. Aspen Ladd had a lot of good things to say about the UFC, even as she announced her departure. She said the UFC is amazing in many ways, and one of the things it's best at is its platform. There's no doubt that it helped her secure a place at the PFL, and she's thankful for that. Now, if only Dana White could get some of his current fighters to speak nicely about his promotion. Up next, is Sara McMann leaving the UFC too? And which bantamweight matchup at UFC 280 could be the sign of a new star? So don't go anywhere. Sara McMann is out of the UFC too. Aspen Ladd was set to face Sara McMann at UFC Vegas 60 before losing weight, and no one was more upset than McMann. It would have been one of her biggest fights to date. Now, she could be on her way out of the UFC. When her fight with Aspen Ladd was scrapped, Sara McMann said she was disappointed with how things turned out. She even called out Ladd by saying that missing weight is the equivalent of cheating. She explained that there are weight classes for a reason, and that every extra pound is a huge advantage over an opponent. For McMann, it's part of being a professional fighter, but she was happy with how the UFC still cared for her despite the cancellation. Sources close to McMann have now claimed that she could be leaving the UFC. Even though she didn't get a final fight, it counted towards her contract, which is why she is technically a free agent now. At 41 years old, Sara McMann doesn't have too many years left, so will she end her career at the UFC with a new contract, find a new promotion like the PFL, or retire now? Only Sara knows. Next, UFC 280. Sara McMann's final fight in the UFC might have been a win over Karol Rosa, and now Rosa is preparing for a fight on the biggest stage of her career. Rosa is a Brazilian fighter who made her name in several local fighting competitions before getting a promotion to the UFC in 2019, but nothing will compare to the pressure of her next fight. It's in the United Arab Emirates at UFC 280, headlined by Charles Oliveira and Islam Makhachev. It's one of the year's most anticipated events, especially after Oliveira was stripped of his belt after controversially missing weight. But further down the card, Karol Rosa will take on the Swedish Lina Länsberg, and that matchup is no easy task. Lina Länsberg has a 10-6 record, with the Swede ranked 12th in the bantamweight division, but that record won't intimidate Rosa. Until her loss to Sara McMann, Rosa was on a 6-fight win streak and seemed to be only getting better with each fight. She's ranked just inside the top 10 at number 9 in the division and has no intention of slowing down. But to make it to the top against fighters like Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena, she'll have to prove herself by returning from her recent defeat. Karol Rosa makes her prediction. Before the fight, Rosa predicted that she knew exactly what Länsberg had in store for her, and she already had her next opponent picked out. She said she doesn't feel the pressure because she's only coming back from 1 defeat, while Länsberg is trying to redeem herself after 2. Rosa is expecting Lina to keep the fight on their feet, as she is known to do, but she has more confidence in her own stand-up game. She has so much confidence that she's already making plans for her next fight. She called out number 5 ranked fighter Raquel Pennington for her next bout. Rosa said that Pennington's style fits well with her own. But before getting too far ahead of herself, Rosa revealed that there was one issue with her next fight. She won't have her head trainer, Gilliard Perina, who couldn't travel because of personal issues. Rosa said, "I'm sad because he won't be there, but he trusts me, and I'll win for us." But having the advice of a trusted trainer can be the difference between winning or losing, so let's hope that his training has sunk in by now. Rosa and Länsberg have proven they can be dangerous fighters at their best, but performing on the big stage is another story. It will give Dana White a good idea about who might eventually have what it takes to challenge the title. Who is the next rising star in the women's bantamweight division? And do you think that Sara McMann should stay at the UFC? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in the next one.